When I came to the Ford Foundation 3 years ago, my director and my vice president and the president at the time asked me to rethink the higher education strategy for the U.S. And the one thing that came out of that was the whole idea that we should really refocus our attention on first-generation low-income college students. And I came across a paper which talked about the fact that 68% of Americans live and work in the states they were born in. So if people are not going anywhere, so it seems to me that our strategy should be a place-based strategy. And one of the things we came across in that research in developing the strategy was, of course, the social innovation article from Stanford, and we heard about Strive, and here you go. And so that we decided at that point we would do a place-based strategy. So it seemed to me that if we were going to do a place-based strategy, we should also consider where the foundation already has a footprint. Because if you have a long-standing footprint there, that means that you have a lot of connections with community-based organizations, with state and local officials. And of course, one of the things we're also cognizant of is this whole issue of we ultimately want to have systems and policy change to make sure that low-income first-generation college students get a high-quality post-secondary credential. And that's how we chose the places that we invest in, and that's how we got to this collective impact strategy. Well, I mean, some of these issues, it seems to me, are very, very challenging issues. And so therefore, if you're trying to increase post-secondary completion for particular students, and in our case, we are particularly concerned about immigrants and veterans, the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated, that it's going to take a much more comprehensive and thoughtful strategy to solve these very critical challenges. And so you really have to get out of your mentality, your siloed mentality. So, if transportation and housing is one of the reasons why these students don't persist, then it makes sense that I should leverage knowledge and expertise with people who know about transportation and housing. So it's not only a different way of thinking in terms of how do you solve these complex issues, meaning that you have to really engage cross-sector work, but it's also a different way of operating inside a foundation. And that, to me, means that we have to get out of our silos in foundations and really work with our colleagues across different initiatives and units within foundations to do the work and move the work forward. And in addition to that, to also reach out to other foundations who are interested in this work, as well as state and local officials and who are also interested in the work as well. Because it's going to take a lot of us to solve some of these complex issues. So therefore, a collective impact approach, I think, is a reasonable way of trying to think about this in a strategic and thoughtful way forward. My advice to foundations would be to invest where people have already come together. So it's a much more natural thing. And what we're trying to do is to help them deepen their work. That doesn't mean that we don't have a particular point of view. And for us, our point of view is we would like for you to, obviously, we want to be able to support your work, but we also want you to consider first-generation low-income college students, and particularly the groups that I mentioned earlier in your thinking. And so it's a partnership. And that's my advice to other foundations, that you build upon existing work and that you look at it as a true partnership. One of the great things about this work is we also partner with local foundations, and which I think is really important, particularly when it comes to sustainability and long-term investment. Which is also to say is that this is not a 2-year deal. I mean, if you're a foundation working in this work, I think it's important to think of it long-term, but also to realize that you have to partner at the local level for long-term sustainability, and also to be very creative about how do you build public-private partnerships, what I would call a braided funding model, because the public sector is where you, I think, have the opportunity to get additional investment and to have long-term sustainability. And so the example I would use is the great work that we're doing in partnership with the Greater Texas Foundation and Educate Texas in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. And that's across a 4-county area in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. But they had already come together. They'd already come together to think about college completion across school districts, across different sectors, across different municipalities. Already working with the local foundation, and it's great because we were able to come in and as a partner to help them think deeper and to really try to move the agenda forward that they had themselves come up with. So Lower Rio Grande Valley for us is a great example. I do think that if we can agree on a certain level of principles that we all see in this work, I think it's going to be important, and also that we never, ever forget that even though this is very local, we have to connect it to systems and policy change. We have to figure out how this work can be systemic to improve the lives of marginalized people all over the country and, frankly, the world.